But what we are currently continuously buying is still the popular varietals of Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio are definitely popular. And then, of course, blends, white blends and red blends, what we are currently sourcing and buying.
Yeah, our top three varietals for Botobox are Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, and Cabernet in that order. For the longest time, Cabernet was the second largest SKU for Botobox, and last year was passed by Sauvignon Blanc.
Like the top thing that we've been looking for, and we're always looking for good quality of Pinot Grigio. Sauvignon Blanc would be second to that, and then beyond that it's blender whites.
Hey guys, this is Sid Patel, CEO of Beverage Trade Network and International Bulk Wine and Spirit Show. Welcome to our online webinar here, What Top Bulk Wine Buyers Want Today, especially, right? So this is a really contextual subject. We all know what's going on, but it's great always to hear from the buyers, right? Because that's where ideally the request of the retailers are coming, the private label entrepreneurs are coming, or the brands are coming, and that's exactly sort of the front part of the bulk wine industry. So I have this amazing speakers. We have Emily from Crenchero Family Estates, we have Darren from Delicado, and we have Marinda from First Leaf. So great to have you guys here. Thank you so much for making the time and appreciate your time here. Let's kickstart, and at the same time, I would love to invite you all to the International Bulk Wine and Spirit Show that's happening on July 29th and 30th. So looking forward to seeing you all. Miranda, what are you seeing in the bulk wine today, right? So what are the things that are driving your bulk wine decisions?
Hi, everybody. I'm Marinda Kruger. I'm a winemaker, VP of winemaking for First Leaf. And been in the bulk wine business for 18 years, a little bit more than 18 years. And believe me, seen a lot of highs and lows in all of these years. But the wine business remains amazing and always great to be in it. So always what drives bulk wine business, and for me, it hasn't really changed, is price to quality. And I want to put quality first and price second, because everybody always talks about money. But I've seen that if you overproduce on a quality per price point, you will always sell wine. Customers are being more educated. They have a range of opportunities they can buy from, and you have to stand out from the crowd. As a bulk wine producer, wanting to sell your wine on the market, and us bottling and doing own private labels, we want to stand out from the crowd. It's very competitive out there, but the business is healthy. And for me, it remains definitely. And then, of course, sustainability comes in as well. But for me, the main drivers is quality to price ratio.
Appreciate it. Emily, how about you? What are the three factors, let's say 3 or 4, that's driving bulk wine purchasing decisions for you?
We're on both sides of it. We're both selling and we're buying. So I think that's kind of how a lot of us are these days, is we're doing a little bit of everything. One of the main things that I'm seeing is it's very driven by demand. Even if there's a good deal out there, people aren't jumping on a good deal just because it's a good deal. There has to be a home for it and a destination for it for people to actually pull the trigger. Secondly, would be that quality to price ratio that Marinda was discussing. I think that's a big factor as well. And then lastly, people are looking, and us are looking more for a finished wine product, looking for it to be ready to go to bottle, ready to go to the consumer as fast as possible. So you're not incurring extra fees for storage and whatnot. So those are kind of the top 3 things that I'm seeing from my angle.
Great. We'll break down in sort of the categories and whatnot later. But Darren, would love to hear your top observations.
Hello, everybody. I'm Darren Klein, senior winemaker at Delicado Family Wines. I've been with the company for 14 years now, and I've been in the industry for just over 20 years. My main focus has been, since I've been in Delicado, Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc. So I've seen the growth of Sauvignon Blanc over the last, let's say, eight years, but I've also been dealing with a very large Cabernet program, because if you don't know, Delicado produces the world's largest premium box wine brand. That's Botobox. So we play in the bulk wine business on both the seller and the buyer side. And when we're buying wine, the number one factor, of course, is stylistic fit. Does the wine fit into the style of wine we're trying to make, right? That's the number one criteria. Obviously, the wine needs to be appropriately priced. If we're sourcing wine for a Boda box and it's a Napa Cabernet, it's probably going to be overpriced. And even if the pricing were right, stylistically, we want to make wine that is source wine that's going to either fit the style we're trying to make or bring something to the party. For example, if we're making a low alc wine for Breeze, we're probably going to be sourcing wines on the lower alcohol side. So if we're not sourcing the varietal, the leading varietal like the Cabernet, and we're sourcing for a blender, we want that blender to bring something to the party. Color, alcohol, something that's going to enhance our blend. The next criteria is supplier competence. We're looking to find win-win long-term sustainable relationships on the bulk market with other wineries, other producers. So we want this to be a long-term relationship. We want it to be something that is a win-win for both sides. And of course, lastly, price. Everybody mentioned price. If it doesn't fit the COGS that we're going for, or doesn't lower our COGS, then of course it's not going to be a fit for us.
So I'm going to go a little deeper now on the same question, right? So we have some sort of meat into it. Maybe Miranda, let's say you can talk about like what are the particular styles that in your D2C model that you are seeing the growth in, because you yourself have enough data that you don't need to, let's say, rely on Nielsen. What are you buying basically when it comes to actual needs, like styles or countries?
So, of course, we have a portfolio that I compile and always constantly evaluate every 6 months to stay on top of trends and see if we are still hitting the mark, what our customers want. And what I have seen over the years is that especially people want easy drinking wines. People can't afford to put wine away in their cabinet. They want fruity, upfront fruity wines, easy drinking tannins. So we've steered to our producers to not over extract wines, if I think of wine styles, and to make it more consumer friendly. The varietals that are still top notch are still popular, like the Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, that's gaining more and more popularity. So definitely the wine styles, white wine, we've seen definitely an increase in white wine demand more than red wine, where red wine were always the most drunk wine in the US. White wine has definitely gained market share there. But it depends also on your demographic of your customer profile that you're serving, because we have seen that there are some demographics that hasn't changed in preference from red to white. And then especially the younger generations drinking more white and rosé wines. So definitely the same sort of varietals, but tweaks in the wine style and giving a portfolio that's a little bit more diversified and looking to countries also that gives you a diversified portfolio.
Got it. I think you said, what your customers are also, let's say, what's your demographic, right? And I'll lead this into Emily, this question. The consumer itself is changing as we know now, like the actual shift is happening, right? So the whole demographic is, as we just said, from red to white is actually looks like a permanent little change now, at least in the short run. So has it completely changed? If you come out with a plan, I'm sure it will be 2 whites and 1 red instead of 2 reds and 1 white now, if you're thinking about a new brand extension. So how's that going on, especially in a large company like yourself, Emily? How are you adapting to the end consumer?
In general, there's a big assessment of the existing SKUs. What's performing, what's not performing, what are we trying to shoehorn into something that's not going to work? So it's really being honest with ourselves of what the consumer wants, and whether we're passionate about it, it doesn't matter as much anymore. We could think that this cab is really great and it's going to sell. But if the consumer's not going to buy it and not be interested in it, we unfortunately have to abandon some of these, plans. What is driving things is that no low alc, especially for whites, white varieties in general. That demand is pushing us even more because of low vineyard performances from a lot of those white varieties in the past few years as well. So that's driving a lot of our struggles in trying to find those white varieties as well, and trying to give the consumer what they're looking for. So,
and can you name like 3 or 4 things that, let's say, give me 3 or 4 categories that are actually growing in double digits?
Oh, I don't think anything's growing double digits. That's really very optimistic of you
maybe
to say
5%.
that. I think we celebrate the 3% growth, right? Which we're seeing, we're seeing marginal growth in Sauvignon Blanc, aromatic white varieties, white blenders, Viognier, Muscat, things like that can be blended in. And predominantly, we're seeing the biggest growth in Pinot Grigio in particular. And definitely a larger growth in the low alc. We've been in the no alc space for a long time, and we've seen some of our biggest growth in these past couple of years with those brands. It's a good time to already have your toe in that water.
Darren, how about you? Like, any particular specifics you can give on, what you are betting on when it comes to the growth and pouring money there, so at least you can keep on growing your top line?
We've actually been very fortunate, and we have seen a lot of growth in our Beau de Brise brand, which is a low alc. It's not a no alc. It's 8%. 8.5% alcohol California wines, and we've seen a lot of growth there. We've seen a lot of growth with 500 milliliter Tetra Pak. So basically, we put the Boda Mini. That's the brand for that, and that's been growing very, very well for us. But on the winemaking side of things, in conjunction with our marketing team, we do have an R&D resource internally. So we do a lot of, if we're trying to launch a brand, we're trying to make a wine a certain style, we want to test it out with the consumer. We have the resources through our R&D team to do that, to see how the wines perform with the consumer. So we're very fortunate in that before we go to market with something, we have a pretty good idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Let's move to sort of the sourcing strategy changes in logistics and supplies and packaging materials and things of that nature, if you're a little bit involved there as well. With this whole Trump, tariff things and volatility in the market, have you changed anything? Like, are you looking for local suppliers, or maybe at least you have 2, 3, 4 suppliers now instead of 2 supplier strategy? Maybe Darren, you can start here first on, apart from just the wine, how else have things changed?
For us, I have to say we really haven't changed much because there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So if you know that there's going to be tariffs and you know there's going to be tariffs from a certain area, you probably can make a tactical adjustment. But for what we've seen, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. So it's very hard to determine what to do. We have increased the flexibility in our shipping. So we do import a lot of containers of wine from South America, Australia, and what we've seen is just longer delays, longer times on the water. So we just plan accordingly for that. We just get ahead of the lead times, but we also again try to be as flexible as we can with receiving the wine. For example, if 100,000 gallons is coming in of a certain varietal from a certain country, we try to set ourselves up to where not all of that wine needs to be here in order for that blend to make it for the bottling target, right? If half of it gets here, the style of the wine is still very similar, and we're not relying on any particular supplier. We've kind of made adjustments on that side of it. We have seen some freight forwarders totally bow out of receiving to our ports, so we've had to consolidate some of our logistics. But we're also relying more on our freight forwarders to do some of the logistical planning and delivering for us on that end of it, so we don't have to make as many guesses. So we haven't changed much, but we've just adapted to be more flexible and be able to roll with the punches.
I mean, have you asked like 2 or 3 more things from your suppliers to include in the logistics clauses, or maybe logistic partners? You're putting 2 or 3 more terms now, no price increase if something happens. Anything that you're playing with there as well, just to secure that the unknowns are eliminated?
I think we're doing more winemaking outside of our facility with our producer partners, either in South America or Australia, so that when the wine does get here, it's ready to go, as Emily kind of alluded to, right? So we're trying to utilize the services of our suppliers so that we have that much more flexibility, that much more short turnaround from when the wine comes through our facility and we're making the blends. But no, we really haven't done more than that. We haven't made major adjustments beyond what I've already said.
I can latch onto what Darren said is that we also haven't changed much, but we are very vigilant and aware to be in touch of what's going on with regards to tariffs. So we have a diversity of origins within our portfolio, so it would be easy to switch, which we don't really want to, because we have a diversified portfolio for origins to satisfy our customer demands. But if it comes to that wine becomes too expensive and the business model doesn't make sense, we are flexible in that regard. We also do long-term buy planning, but we also do just-in-time shipping, and also making sure we've worked with producers. Recently in South Africa, we've worked with 2 producers to make sure that our wine are finished in the country and it can ship directly into bottling. We've also seen some delays at ports. So you have to deal with all of that to ensure that you do satisfy the demand in time for our customers. So surely on that front, it has taken a lot of planning, but key to us is having a good freight forwarder and communication to help from the producer side as well, and not just from our side with the freight forwarder. And if you can get the producer to help from that side, planning the shipping as well and making sure that things leave the winery on time to port, then that really, really helps a lot. So it's definitely a partnership between the freight forwarding, the shipping company, and the producer.
And the tariff structures or the new rates, let's say, has not impacted in you saying, let's say, no to France and yes to Argentina or something like that, or that has not yet come in the picture?
No, it's not yet that much in the picture.
Okay. How about you, Emily? Any particular things going on in logistics or change of directions just because of tariffs and geopolitical things?
We're definitely seeing an impact. It's not, I think it's just being prepared to be nimble. If, a company, so we're seeing it more on like the fermentation supplies, the barrel side, as opposed to the bulk wine side just yet. So when it comes to going into this harvest, we had suppliers come and say, well, we have to increase our prices by X to accommodate for tariffs or potential tariffs. And so that may change our mind on, okay, well, maybe we want a different fermentation supply. Maybe we need a different yeast that's going to act similarly, but has a lower cost impact. I know we don't want to say that cost, is driving everything, but cost is a big part of what we're dealing with right now. And, profitability margins are getting thinner and thinner. So it's something we have to be aware of and able to pivot whenever we have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and I'll tack on to what Emily just said. What she said is exactly right. We seem to be reacting to price more than to supply chain constraints and things like that. So right now, the best opportunity to be more profitable in the wine industry is to operate at a lower cost, right? To reduce your costs. We seem to be reacting more to that. With all the logistical challenges that are happening, what will be impacted is price, right? Shipping wine in a container from South America is going to be more expensive. So how are we reacting to that? Well, we're reacting to that more than we're reacting to the longer logistical supply chain challenges.
Mm-hmm. And also the dollar no one speaks about, but that must have impact a little bit, or you normally have insurances and lock it, like as that impacted?
I haven't seen our team really discuss that or take that in consideration yet. I've heard of wineries doing that for buying barrels, right? You buy barrels in euros, or you buy euros to anticipation of buying barrels with the expectation of there being favorable currency exchanges there, but we haven't taken that into consideration for buying bulk wine yet.
Okay. You look for a win-win partnership. So what does that look like? What do you mean by win-win? I'm sure we all try to make sure that it's long-term and win-win, but give me some examples of they being happy and you being happy.
Well, we are a large producer, so it's easier for us to work with larger wineries because they're more capable of meeting our shipping deadlines. For example, if we're buying 10 loads of wine from a winery, are they going to trickle those loads into us 1 load a day, or they're able to deliver us the wine all at once so that we fill our tanks quicker, we can protect the wine. So what are their capabilities? Also, are they a bulk wine player because they're oversupplied, or are they like us where we're always in the bulk market all the time, right? It's part of our strategy, right? Part of our strategy as a company at Delicata Family Wines is being in the bulk wine business all the time, and that could be buying, that could be selling. And for us, we know who is kind of offloading excess wine on the bulk market because of forecast changes or forecast inefficiencies. So we do a lot of work with our brokers. So the brokers are very good at vetting suppliers, particularly in areas outside of California. We're very familiar with the producers in California, but when we're going into a new country, for example, Argentina, we may not know the wineries there. So we rely on our brokers, the Turrentines, the Ciatis, to vet those suppliers for us and see who's a good fit for us.
So just on that, I mean, what I'm hearing is you say no to spot buying, let's say, if it's a little bit like that, or you say no to excess inventory, but you try to be deal with a person who has similar capabilities on the size and who's into the bulk wine and the whole branded business or private label or whatever. So it's not just one shot bulk wine and deal is done and job is done. So you say sort of no to those sort of transactions.
I wouldn't say we say no to those, but we prefer to do contract when we're selling wine, when we're making wine for other people. We do prefer there to be a pre-harvest contract. We know what kind of wine that they're looking for. We know how many gallons it's going to be, so we can source the wine appropriately and also make the wine appropriately. Understood. On the flip side of it, we like that as well, but we find ourselves in a spot from time to time where we have to go out in the bulk market and find wine one time only because of forecasting changes or whatever the reason may be, the light harvest. So in those cases where I wouldn't say we would say no to any particular supplier, but again, we have a pretty good understanding of who's capable of delivering logistically for us, and do they need do we need the wine filtered before it gets to us? They need to be able to do that. Can they do that? So it makes it easier for us to cut a deal on bulk wine if you're a winery like Trinchero or the other large wineries.
Emily, same thing. Like, what do you look for in qualifying your potential bulk wine supplier partner?
Yeah, like Darren was saying, for us, if we're making a deal, usually it's a larger deal. We want to make sure the logistics work for us and that, our partners can work to meet our deadlines. I think part of it's also the mutual respect. A lot of our partners that we've worked with for many years are people that, it's been long-lasting relationships where, we may have to make concessions to maintain those relationships. And sometimes, it's like, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine a little bit later on. I think is we find a lot of that, but there's always opportunities for people to get into those relationships as well. And I think part of it's also, because, I say, I don't want us to seem like we're just this tiny little bubble and it's impossible to access.
I was going to ask you that, like if someone potentially wants to cold call you or set a meeting and introduce you a bulk supplier, what kind of things do you normally, do you normally entertain or it's so locked, the relationships, that no chance?
It's not always so locked. I feel like some of it's relationship based. I don't want to work with someone who I don't have mutual respect for. And so like if I meet somebody out at meeting people at events like this, when we're going to be down at the event, meeting people and having those relationships and creating a mutual trust from the ground up is so important. Just having a good deal and being a jerk isn't going to work for me. I feel like that's a big part of it is the mutual respect, the relationships, the being able to trust that you can come back to somebody over and over again, with good news, bad news, and indifferent news. I feel like that's like the best way you can get involved with some of these bigger companies, whether, a lot of us are involved in different technical groups, ASEV, Unified, a lot of these things that we're involved in. I think that's usually the best way to find a way in. And I can't guarantee it, but, it's the best route to try.
It can be a silly question because I'm, again, not in the super winemaking side, but I would love to ask Marinda this. So this whole thing is so much technical buying to buying, right? Like winemaker buying to winemaker selling. Technically, if it's bulk. Am I true? Or like can an export manager Would you respect more if a winemaker sold you a bulk wine? My point is that.
Yes, I think it's very important. Of course, in the beginning, with the negotiation, it would be somebody knocking on the door. That's the export manager. And some export managers are well knowledgeable about their producer, the stories they can tell from the legacy of if it comes from the farm. Somewhere in that conversation, I like to speak to the winemaker because we will taste the bulk wine, we'll receive the bulk wine. And as a technical person myself, I'd like to know some winemaking things because that would tell me also a bit about the shelf life, how the wine will evolve. So definitely technical is so important, part of that, and having the winemaker part of that conversation at some point going forward is for us vitally important. Of course, it's a mutual business relationship, as Darren and Emily has elaborated on it, and trust and transparency and traceability is vital important in a relationship, for a long-term relationship, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask, this straight question because that's a subject. What are our bulk wine buyers buying right now? So let's name three things, if you can, please, that you're actually looking and buying. Maybe we can start with Miranda.
Yes, we have a very diversified portfolio because we are for those that don't know, we're a DTC company, so we have a membership base, so we know the customer, but we always want to lure in customers as well. So we have a broad diversity of our portfolio, and our brand is First Leaf. So we are not married to a brand like some traditional wineries would have. So within our portfolio, within First Leaf, we have 250 different labels, and they can change. We have a core portfolio. We've seen labels or brands that our customers really love and expect over the years, and we keep doing that. But we have the opportunity to introduce new styles, new brands all the time. It's always evolving because we want to offer new things to our customer base all the time. So, but what we are currently continuously buying is still the popular varietals of Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, if we can get it at the moment at a very good price. Quality-wise, there's a lot of scarcity with the varietal in some regions, of course. Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio are definitely popular. And then, of course, blends, white blends and red blends, what we are currently sourcing and buying.
And just one more follow-up on that. Like, is there any particular varietal where you're exhausted with your supply network and maybe you're now looking for another supplier as well because you have enough demand?
Pinot Grigio, for sure.
Okay. Good to know. How about you, Emily? Same question, please.
Same answer, really. Pinot Grigio is like the top thing that we've been looking for, and we're always looking for good quality of Pinot Grigio. Like I said, just because we've had some really poor harvests the past few years where yields have come in significantly lower than expectations. Sauvignon Blanc would be second to that, and then beyond that, it's blender whites. It's that white market that's really dominant right now.
Out of curiosity, so Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, South Africa, Chile, or any sort of Sauvignon Blancs?
Predominantly for us, we everything's pretty well domestic. We don't do a whole lot of importing at this point. It's something we have started to look at, but it's not a direction we've gone up until now.
Got it. Darren, how about you?
Yeah, our top three varietals for Boda Box are Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, and Cabernet in that order. For the longest time, Cabernet was the second largest SKU for Boda Box, and last year was passed by Sauvignon Blanc. So that is a growing program. When it was first launched, the winemakers, we were very worried about putting Sauvignon Blanc in a BIB package just for longevity. But at that time, the program was probably about 100,000 gallons when we launched. Today, it is much larger than that and has grown to be our second largest SKU. So we source a lot of that from from Chile. We look at wines from all over the world. We look at Australia. We have other Sauvignon Blanc SKUs that we've sourced from California historically. But here, let me give you an example. California produced just under 140,000 tons of Sauvignon Blanc last year. That was down from 160 the year prior. 60,000 tons of that 140 came from areas where we would be able to afford the grapes, right? That's the Central Valley, Lodi region. Most of that 60,000 tons is under contract with other wineries. So where are we going to source Sauvignon Blanc for Boda Box that's at like a California price? We have to bring it in from, and we have been bringing it in from Chile for many years. We are looking at other regions in case there's some challenges as far as supply down there. Pinot Grigio, also we're looking outside of California as well. We have to. It is a California program. It has been, but again, grape supply is pretty tight. So we're looking at South America. They don't make a lot of Pinot Grigio. So where do you go? And then Cabernet is pretty well supplied. So we're just trying to find sources of Cabernet that fit our style, that meet the consumer preference for Boda Box and what the consumer is going to expect for a Boda Box, right? So those are the three categories that really are getting most of our attention these days.
What are the biggest opportunities that you see if you were, let's say, in their shoes, or I'm sure you are already in their shoes, we all are. If you are a bulk producer, like what are you seeing as an opportunity, and maybe how are you navigating? What's your plan 12 to 24 months, especially like if you're a Californian sort of producers, which is the hardest hit right now?
One thing that we like to do for our buyers or people that we're trying to sell wine to, we don't give them 100,000 choices of wines to buy, right? We want to focus the offering to them for wines that we think they're going to like, right? We most recently went through a round of tasting wine from various suppliers, and they're giving us a sample from every single tank, and it might be 2,000 gallons, it might be 200,000 gallons. So make the choice a little bit easier for the people you're trying to sell wine to. The second reason, but the most important reason, is be flexible on price. Right now, there's a lot of bulk wine out there, and I think you're gonna have a better opportunity to cut a deal, get business going if you're flexible with pricing, because the price has to fit the customer, but the how much you paid for the grapes shouldn't have as much bearing on what you're demanding for the price of wine. The market determines the price of the wine.
On that last line, are your buyers, chain buyers, also asking for be flexible in the price now?
I forgot to mention that earlier. We have a team, a team that works on business to business bulk wine buying and selling. And they're out there constantly working with the Marindas and the Emilys and a lot of our suppliers, and they have a pretty good understanding of what the market price is for each variety, and so they're the ones that work on the pricing. But what I've been seeing is so we give them a shopping list. These are the wines we want to buy. These are the ones that fit the program. They go to the buyer, and the ones that aren't getting the business are the ones that are trying to hold unrealistic pricing.
Cool, thank you, appreciate it. Maybe Marinda, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I'll come from a different angle. For opportunities for producers of bulk wine is that they should see it as a strategic arm in their business. It's what Darren previously mentioned. It's not just to push oversupply in their winery. If they see it as a strategic arm and treat it the same as they would treat their own bottled wines, I think then there will be a huge uptick in the quality and the way you would present it. Simple presentation of your bulk wine samples is that make sure that it's not reductive, there's no faults in, and make it as market ready as you possibly can, but you have to learn the market you want to sell it into. I think that's also very important. And if you don't know, ask your potential buyer what are the styles that would work for. So I do think there's a responsibility to to be aware of the trends and the styles that's popular and that is on the uprise. I think that's a huge opportunity. I know on farm level it's very difficult to pivot, because to uproot a vineyard and replant is very expensive, but you can graft, and within 2 years you can have your first crop if that is necessary to be relevant in the market. I think also very small but very vital for us also is because we, as a bulk wine producer, don't just sell a wine with a label on that somewhere it's been sold as bulk wine. Is we want to sell the story as well. Customers are interested in the stories. They are interested in the sustainability of the product. And if we can get that information together with a wine, it sort of put that bulk wine sample on a different level than if you receive a bulk wine sample just with the varietal and the vintage as a sticker on it. So I do think if you have more information that would help us sell that wine as well from the start, it really helps as well.
Good tips there. Thank you. Emily, how about you?
Well, I feel like my panel mates have kind of covered the basis for me. But like they said, show samples that are finished, make sure there's no flaws, treat them like your own wines, make sure if there's an oak impact, make sure that's in there. Make sure you're marketing it as such as well. Make sure you're market yourself as best as you can for your wines that you're producing. Be prepared for quick movements. We see a lot of people just coming in and purchasing really quick and wanting to ship right away. That's another part of it. And if you're really looking, if you are a grower, it's probably worth it to really consider if it's time to fallow some blocks, if it's a graftable, if you have the means to replant to something that may have more of a drive than varieties that we're seeing falling out of favor significantly. There's a lot of Zinfandel out there that is not going to be picked. There's a lot of other varieties that aren't going to be picked in these coming years just because the consumer is not driving that. And unfortunately, we may have to make these tough decisions. I know we are as a company making tough decisions on what makes sense because there's a baseline cost of farming. At a certain point, you could just be throwing money away. And so a lot of it is asking yourself the hard questions, seeing if you have the means to follow what the consumer wants right now. I don't have a crystal ball to see where we're going to go, but if anyone's listened to the Allied Wine Growers presentations for the past however many years, they've said fallow fields, pull out. And you see a lot of it this year, but we're still not quite where we need to be for even current production. And if it continues to go down, that's going to continue to change. If it bounces back, if it levels out, so much is up in the air. So trying to be nimble and trying to be adaptable, I think, is the best thing we can do for any of us in any of our positions right now.
So I'll read a couple of questions. Maybe anyone can chip in and answer this. Store brands like private labels, right? So, to my knowledge, I think based on the data that I've seen, there is a growth there happening, at least in that particular category. We just don't talk about it much. How are you playing private labels is one question. Second is, are you also now pushing the private label brands of your big retailers in your marketing budget?
Delicata Family Wines, we have a team that focuses in on private label. We have it's a small team, but they do a lot of business. And you're right, Sid. That is an area of growth that I forgot to mention earlier. That's probably growing more than any other category right now for us. The Butter Breeze is growing pretty well, but private label is doing very well because retailers are trying to offer value to their customers, right? That's a way to do it. But we have a team that goes out and does that. They work the customers, they work the retailers, and ask them, hey, what is it that we can do with you? And we're making blends, we're showing wines, and they're very active in market with the buyers.
And do you put those brands at all in your portfolio or website or marketing, or it's just sort of secret? Meaning it's private, let's say.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think most of those deals are exclusive to the retailer.
Got it.
They're exclusive to the retailer. So no, we don't do that. I don't know of a case where we've done that yet.
Got it. Anyone wants to contribute here if they're dealing with private labels?
Yeah, same sort of thing. We've got another team that does it, but I did speak to them about this, and it is a growing segment for us. And we used to do only a certain size or larger, but we have now, as ourselves as a provider of the private label, our minimums have gone way back. So we're adapting. To us, a sale's a sale, and we're going to adapt to make that sale happen. There's definitely some shift to it. And in the past, when we've done other ones of these, if the retailer ever comes back and says that they don't want to renew it, then sometimes we'll take that label and turn it into one of our labels. So we don't promote it until after they give it back. So just to kind of dovetail into what Darren was saying there.
Perfect. Anything else, Miranda, there?
Well, our whole business is DTC private labels. So,
Yep.
yeah, and it's been successful. First Leaf is very successful. Good to report that business is stable, and I like and we can communicate the story of each label to our customers because we have that direct communication with them, and we are always developing new private labels.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Another question is, how is sustainability influencing your sourcing decisions in the US and bulk wine market? And are buyers placing more emphasis on certifications like organic or carbon neutral?
I mean, importing bulk wine is important because your carbon footprint is much lower than importing bottled wines. So in that regard, we will also always do that. What we have also done is we have different tier levels of quality, of course. And for our premium levels, our fine wine collections, we've even imported in totes where you can have 6 totes in a container, where it's higher price, higher quality, barrel aged wines, maybe things like that. So that is also important. Sustainability certification on farming practices and winemaking practices is, of course, very important. Water usage as a natural resource, managing that. All of that information is for sure important to fill in the story and to give that through to the customers, because we have found that they do care and it's interesting for them to know that. And of course, quality certifications is a great assurance for us. ISO has certifications that things are done in a correct manner.
About sustainability and of course some of the certifications that retailers are asking for. Just like I said earlier, where we like to have capable suppliers. The private label, the retailers, they also want capable suppliers, right? They want suppliers that have traceability to all the processes, food safety, ISO, everything that Marinda and Emily said. So they are becoming more and more particular on supplier capabilities at the winery level. As far as sustainability goes, they haven't gone there yet, or haven't seen a whole lot of retailers go there yet. But Europe suppliers are asking for that. That's becoming a bigger deal. And in my opinion is that the wine industry sits around and tries to understand how to connect with the next generation of wine consumers. The next generation of wine consumers are saying that sustainability is important to them. It's a value for them. It's a high priority. So there's an opportunity in the wine business, in the wine industry, to connect with that next generation consumer in that way. Mm-hmm. And most of us are doing that. The Trincheros, the First Leafs, the Delicados are already doing a lot of sustainability things. It's just a matter of documenting it and getting the certification. Most things that we're doing is already sustainable. Why? Because sustainability isn't just a matter of earth and all that. It's a matter of profitability. And we tend to do things to be more profitable. And 30%, 33% of sustainability is that.
Maybe more for Emily and Darren here. Like, have you seen from chains, like literally, this is the RFP, but it must be now, this is a new requirement, like Target, especially given a case, let's say, any retailers really going as a compulsory buying checklist now?
I know I've seen it in the past when I've worked making brands for Costco in a previous life. There's definitely the checks and balances that you have to do as a company. For us, we preemptively follow all of those rules so that we have all those checklists handled for those large retailers when they want to know your hazardous control points and your SQF requirements and good manufacturing procedures. Those we have all in place, so it's ready to go. So we do see it more often, but it's less, I'm seeing less of the actual physical walkthroughs to go through it because it's so documented already for the company.
Any new things, like any new certification requirements have come up from any chain?
I haven't seen any new ones, but I will make sure to research before the end of next month.
Got it. Cool. One last one here. Do you purchase imported wines in bottle or tanker load flexi tank for your private label?
For us, it's mostly bulk. It's expensive and inefficient to import case goods, right? It's easier for us to ship wine in bulk and bottle it at our facility, but we are doing that to a small extent, but we are doing it and mostly doing it in bulk.